Can everyone hear me clearly, also online? I think so. Anyways, good morning, everyone.
Yes, we can.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right. So, dear all, good morning and welcome to the residence of the Finnish ambassador. So, this breakfast event highlights the importance of water, sanitation, and hygiene as a human right, especially from the gender perspective. My name is Jenny Kielholma, or Jenny Kielholma. I'm the agricultural counselor here at the embassy, and I also deal with water issues. Just a few practical details. Due to COVID, we have some water coming. That's wonderful. And there we go. Pardon me. Yeah, so just a few practical details. Due to COVID, we are just a handful of people here. We have the doors open and the windows open here. So please, if you're not eating or drinking, just keep your masks on inside, and you're welcome to take them off outside when we have our breakfast. There is the little sanitizers there on your chair that you can use and take with you. For the virtual audience, for the speakers, please keep your mics muted. And for the audience, you may type your questions, and we'll see if we have time to answer them during this morning. This session will be recorded. Anyways, we have such a wonderful lineup of speakers, so I will give the floor to them just in a few seconds. But before that, I would like to show a little video that demonstrates what this campaign is all about. Marcelo, if you please. Thank you. It almost makes it emotional with this images from home. But without further ado, I would like to invite Ambassador Lammila to start this morning's session. Thank you very much. Here we go. Please.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning, distinguished guest, Deputy Minister Jaana. And I also want to greet Eva, my good friend, whom I see here. And dear speakers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning for this breakfast on this chilly and sunny South African winter morning. As you see, I'm covered and I'm well and safe and warm. So we have a cozy fire burning to keep our guests warm here at my residence. Finland, as I have heard and seen in pictures, is at the moment enjoying wonderful summer days. 25 degrees in Helsinki today. Today, we are here to discuss the important issues of water and sanitation as human rights, especially from gender perspective. This event forms part of a series of events organized by the Embassy in order to advance Finland's candidacy for the United Nations Human Rights Council for the term 2022 to 2024. As a leading nation in gender equality, education and digitalization, Finland works to build a world where all women and girls can fully enjoy their rights. Gender equality profits the whole society. Our own history is a great example of that. However, before we can even start the conversation on quality education and digitalization, we must make sure that the very basic human rights are ensured. Access to clean water and sanitation is one of them. One of the greatest impediments for children, especially girls, to attend and stay in school is the lack of clean water, the lack of sanitation, and the resulting diseases due to poor hygiene. Even before the children reach school-going age, the problems are immense. Today, 2.2 billion people lack access to safe water and 4.2 billion people lack adequate sanitation. The impact on child mortality rates is devastating, with more than 297,000 children under 5 who die annually from diarrheal diseases due to poor sanitation, poor hygiene, or unsafe drinking water. School and childhood should go hand in hand, but many children in low-income communities with no access to water, sanitation, and hygiene are unable to attend class because they are sick with diseases related to poor hygiene or have to spend a large part of each day fetching water for their family. For teenage girls, the presence of a safe water supply and appropriate toilet facilities at the place of learning can be the crucial difference between dropping out and finishing school. Water has become a critically scarce natural resource in many regions of the world, also here in South Africa, and adverse effects of the climate change, growing population, urbanization, and changes in consumption patterns, water demand will increase. On the top of that, as we have witnessed in Southern Africa, but also in Finland in recent years, floods and droughts are getting more frequent and severe due to climate change. These extreme events are aggravating the water crisis. Adaptation to growing water demand requires appropriate water management practices as well as water infrastructure to build resilience and to ensure water security. To address these challenges in access of clean water, sanitation and hygiene issues globally, international collaboration is imperative. Therefore, Finland has created an international water strategy of its own. The strategy acknowledges water as a critical element for sustainable development and an essential resource for all human activities. The vision of the strategy is to have a water-secure world by 2030 and describes Finland's commitment to do its part to reach Sustainable Development Goal number 6 for water and sanitation. To achieve this ambitious goal, collaboration is needed at all levels, between both national and local governments, research organizations, and civil society. Open dialogue between the stakeholders brings best solutions to issues of common concern. Collaboration between Finland and South Africa is already ongoing in the water, sanitation and hygiene issues. The Water Research Commission, and I salute you, Doctor, who is here, and the Finnish Environmental Institute, Syke, Eva, have signed a Memorandum of Understanding, or a MOU, as a framework for research collaboration. There is also a ministerial MOU being finalized between Department of Water and Sanitation of South Africa, and welcome, Doctor, and the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry of Finland. Jana is ready to sign, I know. I'm delighted to have such a wonderful group of speakers present with us today, both virtually and physically here at my residence. I'm wishing everyone a fruitful and thought-provoking event and hoping that we can inspire conversation beyond this morning's event. Thank you all.
Here we go. Thank you so much, Ambassador. I'm not going to take much time of introductions, so I would like to invite Dr. Blazer from Department of Water and Sanitation, if you are with us online. Dr. Balzer. Let's see.
The mic is not on.
There we go.
There we are. Can you,
Welcome, Doctor. Please go ahead.
good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Good morning. It's great to be joining you. Excellency Ambassador Anela Mena, the Excellency Deputy Minister of Agriculture and Forestry, Dr. Jana Rusa-Khalil, the Agricultural Councillor, water partners, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me express an apology on behalf of Minister Lindiwe Sisulu. She would have loved to have been able to participate in this breakfast meeting, but due to other commitments, has had to extend an apology, and she's asked me to present a message of support on her behalf, which would have been more eloquently done by herself. So if you could, Ambassador, please accept Minister Sisulu's apology for not being able to attend. And having extended her apology, I wish to extend to you a warm South African welcome. See the fireplace going there at the embassy and scarves. I'm talking to you from the Eastern Cape in Keimmouth, where it's a little bit warmer. I don't have a scarf on, but nevertheless, a bright sunny day on this side. Allow me to express, and I'm reading the statement on behalf of Minister Sisulu. Allow me to express my profound appreciation for the gracious invitation to this breakfast meeting and the opportunity to address issues of gender equality, a matter which is very closely linked to the provision of water and sanitation. I'm honored to assure the Government of Finland of the Government of the Republic of South Africa's support and wish you well with the elections for the UN Human Rights Council for 2022 to 2024 term. This election which takes place in October this year. I also wish to invite Finland to join South Africa in acknowledging the need to mobilize increased high-level political support for SDG 6 and the other water-related goals of the 2030 agenda. And Ambassador, you've already made reference to the 2030 agenda. When considering our commitment to the Sustainable Development Agenda, it is important to ask ourselves if we are using the systems and tools currently available to us appropriately and effectively to address gender and water-related matters. In South Africa, the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa enshrines gender equality, and it also enshrines the right to water within the Constitution. Just reflecting on the gender side, women in our rural areas have a different experience when it comes to access to water and sanitation. And looking at the provinces, of the variation across the country. Different provinces in the country have a disproportionate access to basic services. And these challenges are further exacerbated by the SDGs' integrated nature and the related challenges, women issues which still need greater attention. As is the case in many other parts of the world, gender stereotypes are very persistent and continue to have a negative impact, especially in the water sector. If one looks at the statistics around access to water, we can learn that involving women in water can increase the effectiveness of water projects 6 to 7 times. In South Africa, we saw this firsthand when we implemented our recovery strategy in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Furthermore, the provision of water in rural areas resulted in an increased food gardening by women in their backyards, which contributed to household food production and food security. This heightened agricultural activity, which I will refer to it as, didn't only result in higher productivity and the generation of some income to households, but it also had some impact on hunger and poverty, which we could see some reduction. It is clear that there's a willingness among community stakeholders to improve water security, and involving women from our existing communities certainly would support this. However, long-term investments, including foreign direct investments, are needed in critical sectors like water to ensure that the required injection of resources to achieve goals 5 and 6. I have hopes that our engagement today will set forth a new approach to catalyze change and to build partnerships and cooperation, outlining why an integrated and inclusive approach that draws in all relevant sectors and stakeholders is needed if we want to accelerate gender equality and further cooperation between our respective governments. And Ambassador, just in conclusion, you made reference to an MOU which is in the making, and in the letter of apology which Minister sent to you, she also made reference to the fact that she will be ready to sign that memorandum once the two parties have finalized all of the logistics and agreed on a date for the signing. So I would once again just give that commitment to you as well, that we're ready to sign that MOU. I thank you, Ambassador. I thank you, colleagues, for giving me the time to address you this morning. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Doctor. That sounds very good that the Minister is ready to sign after the logistics are in place. I'm very pleased to hear that. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Usupalli, the Deputy Minister, to say a few greetings from Finland. Go ahead.
Dear Ambassador, dear South African colleagues, dear Jenny and all the panelists, my very, very warm regards from Helsinki. And indeed, it is more than 20 degrees in the morning and a beautiful, beautiful light green nature that we Finns definitely enjoy. I have had the privilege to visit South Africa several times, and I'm always overwhelmed of the beauty of your country as well. And we both know that water is crucial for food security and for the beauty, for the biodiversity. So we definitely share very common targets and opinions in that. I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk. And first of all, my best and very sincere regards to Minister Sisulu. And I was so happy to hear how the previous speech ended. And I'm really looking forward to signing the Memorandum of Understanding. Dear Minister and the colleagues are more than welcome to signature occasion in Finland, or we will come to South Africa, whatever the preference will be. But my preference would be also on behalf of my Minister Leppä, that we get the delegation to come to Finland this time. So I will say that our pen is ready here. So please Please come. But then a few words about water. And I listened carefully, of course, the previous talk and the message from Minister Sisulu and also that of our ambassador. So I'm not going to repeat everything, but also on behalf of our ministry, a few words of the importance. And I would start that also from the World Economic Forum, water has been identified as one of the critical tops, or as actually the crisis has been ranked as one of the top 3 risks globally. And the water shortage is now impacting to more than 40% of the world's population, and it is indeed increasing. So water has become a critical natural resource in many regions of the world, and with growing population, urbanization, and changes in the consumption patterns, water demand will definitely increase. And we all know that climate change is a huge global challenge, and not least when we are talking about water. So the changing climate has huge effects to every sector in our society, but also to our raw water availability and to all water management. So indeed, it is a global threat. The United Nations Food Systems Summit this year calls us to act in order to reach the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, by reforming our food systems. In this context, Finland has advocated the nexus of food, water, forests, and energy. So it is essential to see that these interlinkages between different policy areas. And to my understanding, this is not so commonly understood globally yet. So I count on my South African colleagues to keep this together with us in mind in our international discussions. So water is a cross-cutting issue on the Agenda 2030. It is fundamental to recognize water and sanitation as human rights, as my ambassador already said, as essential components of the right to an adequate standard of living and indeed gender equality. Access to drinking water and sanitation is a basic right. As we heard in South Africa, it's a basic right, and it should be a basic right everywhere. Achieving universal access to basic sanitation will require further efforts for accelerated progress, particularly in rural areas, with special attention to women and to girls. In this regard, Finland has endorsed and warmly welcomed the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development and the reaffirmation of the right to safe drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene therein. The agenda has great potential to address the existing gender gap and other inequalities in access to safe water and adequate sanitation. To honor our common commitment to leave no one behind, we have to identify the root causes and barriers behind these inequalities and design specific interventions to address the exclusion and marginalization. We have had active exchange in water management over the past years between our countries, which we already referred to. And indeed, I have also had a privilege with several other Finnish delegations to pay a visit to your country, and also South Africans have visited Finland to exchange knowledge, to exchange understanding, and to find solutions for sustainable water resources management. And cooperation has been built at many levels, starting from the ministries, between research institutions, and also at very concrete level between cities and water utilities, as well as companies, of course, for very concrete WASH activities. And indeed, the two research institutions already referred have already signed the memorandum and understanding. And I'm sure that during the morning discussion, we will hear more about the concrete work and the future activities we will be facing. So unfortunately, indeed, during the year and a half, we have not been able to have these physical exchanges of ourselves, the visits as we planned, but the future is bright. So as I said already, it would be an honor if and when the minister herself would come to Finland and we will sign the memorandum of understanding. And what I want to conclude is that it's not only signing a memorandum of understanding, it has a huge political impact in my country, and I wish it was, and I hope it is also in your country. But what we need it for, we need it to give a clear signal to the experts on different levels I already referred to, have concrete actions, to work in a concrete manner where we have good examples like the detection of virus in sewage water, what has been going on together, but also on planning and finding the root causes and the solutions I already referred to. So with these words, I'm privileged to be able to greet you from sunny Helsinki. I'm looking forward to increased cooperation. And on behalf of the Finnish government, we are very motivated and willing to intensify this cooperation with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Deputy Minister. Lovely to see you and hear from you. Without further ado, we talked about so much about the global collaboration and things need to be done. So I'm delighted to invite Dr. Naidu from Water Research Commission to say a few words about what are we going to do. Please.
Good morning, Ambassador. Good morning to all the people in the room. It's wonderful to see you here, and good morning to people in Helsinki, and of course to the person in the Eastern Cape. Trevor, if I knew you were going to be on this call, I'd have remembered to put on bow tie. Thank you very much for both this occasion, because I think it's very important, but also for the weather. Ambassador, I didn't know you had such influence, but you brought sunshine to Johannesburg. We have some protests from some direction. If you allow me a rather special reach out to our college in Sikhe, when we visited with them last year, we thought that in 6 months or so, in the middle of 2020, we would have a return visit and get going with the very fruitful engagements that we had in Helsinki. I'm sure that will happen soon enough. But colleagues, we're talking about a very important topic today. We're talking in my world, it is about water, but it is also about human rights, and it is also about gender specific. And my own relationship with Finland goes back many, many years, almost 20 now, I think, when I was in the South African government, and we worked in the domain of research and innovation. And one of the things that the Finnish colleagues made sure that I knew about was the Kalevala. And I think where we are at this point in the 21st century, we are writing the new verses of the new Kalevala. Because one of the things that we have to redefine for ourselves in the 21st century, because the world is so different in every possible way from what it was before, is we have to redefine what the 21st century sample is of the Kalevala. And I hope I'm getting that right.
Yes.
And the starting point of this for us in South Africa is the issue of equality. and in particular inequality. We have a recent history that has been driven primarily around the struggle against inequality. And here in South Africa and globally, we realize that the nature of the challenge is in fact much, much bigger than we envisaged. And this is incredibly important. And Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, when he addressed us in the Mandela Lecture in July last year, he talked about the global pandemic of inequality. And this has become even more severe in the domain of COVID. And I'll come back to this issue just now. But one of the aspects of inequality in the world has to be around gender. And we have some important movements forward that we have seen over the years. And we have to count as a point of inspiration, Madam Excellency Ambassador, the government of Finland is an example for the world. As one of the commentators put out after Prime Minister Sanna Marin was put into office, not just herself, but leading a coalition of 5 parties led by women, as not what the world can be, but what the world should be. And I think we should take heart from that. And what we're talking about today, the UN Human Rights Council, adds to that, because currently we have a president of the Human Rights Council who's also women. Yeah? And that's Nazat Shamin Khan from Fiji. So I think there are vistas that tell us where we can go and what is possible. And I think this is really important. But let me come to this issue around how we deal with the matters associated with SDG 6. The thing that I want to put as the headline, and this comes with my other hats, belonging to a global organization called Human Rights Water, is that we have to have a human rights-based approach to the way we engage SDG 6 and with the way we engage the larger vista of water and sanitation development in the world. And one of the things that we have put as a big highlight around this, because there have been huge lessons around COVID, is that the first challenge of the pandemic is an economic challenge, and we understand this, that we have actually taken a few steps back on the SDG agenda. If we are going to get closer to that goal by 2030, and this African continent is hugely dependent for our development trajectory to get very, very close to that goal, we need this international partnership to accelerate its activity in this domain. And this is absolutely critical. But in the domain of gender, we also have to admit that in this very, very conservative sector, we have still in the 21st century adopted a paternalistic attitude to the way we develop water and the way we develop sanitation, even when we think we're being innovative. So one of the things that South Africa is a global leader in is in the Reinvent Toilets campaign, which is now in its 10th year, launched by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And tremendous strides have been made in this domain. We now have non-sewage sanitation with an ISO standard. It now has a national standard in a couple of countries in the world, including our own, which will completely transform the landscape and allow us to get close to that access point for those 2.2 billion people in the world today. However, if we unpack each of those technologies that we have been engaging, we realize that they're rather gender insensitive. And this is something we've been putting our minds to. And we now have new, smarter toilet systems that are women-friendly, that will still be able to achieve the kinds of things that we wanted to achieve around recovering the waste, decentralized waste treatment, using less water, actually producing energy, but now in a way that is comfortable for women and the girl child. And this is absolutely critical. And I think what we need to do is change maybe some of the focus areas that we have discussed before, because these are the kinds of issues that have to come right up to the front. The other issue that we have to engage is one of the disbenefits that COVID has done for the world as a whole, is that it has taken back the women emancipation agenda in the most serious way. If you look at very basic indicators like gender-based violence, and South Africa's statistics showed us, the increase in the lockdowns has been unbelievable and unjustifiable, and we have to move past that point. It has been a huge reminder that in spite of the great gains that we had with things like the Beijing Platform of Action, that we still have to rewalk much of that road and accelerate this emancipation going into the future. The latest estimates on the African continent say that because people don't have universal access to decent sanitation services, dignified sanitation services, and reliable access to water, because women and the girl child are pulled away from economic activity, from the activities of education, it costs this planet now, in the latest estimates, close to $100 billion a year in lost income. Because when you start counting out the knock-on effects around that, the original 10 billion has a multiplier effect inside the system. So there is an economic argument around a human rights-based approach. There is clearly a social argument around it, and there should be a strong political argument for this as well. And we are looking forward to the possibility of using our cooperation with Finland to be able to get into that realm. My colleagues, to round up, because there's a bunch of us who want to chat about this, is that innovation is absolutely key. And one of the things that made me an admirer of your country all those years ago is an observation of what I shared with some Finnish colleagues as being practical magic. It's about taking a very basic problem, organizing for that problematique to develop out of that so that you can see the opportunities for the solution and then applying that solution. And one of the examples that we have spoken about a lot when we were developing something called the Technology Innovation Agency in South Africa, using a lot of help from Finland in that conceptualization and design, was of course what you did in mobile telephony. And organizing to think about a very large country with very low densification and what it would actually take to have landlines running through an entire country. And being very practical that you did need a huge alternative. We have borrowed that into the African continent in a very interesting way. So Africa has been one of the places in the world that has done a leapfrog, taking its lessons from places like Finland, and I hope that we can continue in that domain. And in the water and sanitation arena, beyond the basic services, into the domain, Deputy Minister, that you're talking about as a basis for broader development, the removal of that risk, the removal of that constraint, I think we have a great deal to do and a great way to go. And the example that you mentioned around the wastewater surveillance is a great example of that. That we're using the wastewater as the surveillance. In fact, we predicted this third wave using our wastewater system 3 weeks before it was actually announced publicly. We know what this can do, and we want this to be a building block for a broader water observatory inside the system around a whole range of indicators. So colleagues, I want to round up now. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have spoken to you. But together, and with your participation in the multilateral organizations, as you've expressed the aspiration to do, we have the opportunity to build back better. We have the opportunity to build forward greener, but we must build to a more equal world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Naidu. That was very many important things about building back better, but also building back more equal. And yes, we are showing the way, and let's see if we can find the new sample for the future. But I would like to give the floor now to the Finnish partner, Syke, Dr. Klima and Dr. Heiskanen.
Thank you very much. Madam Ambassador Anne, dear friend, distinguished South African and Finnish delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's really great to be in South Africa this morning. It feels nice that we can connect in this way, although it would be wonderful to be there in person and visit South Africa again. I was there last time, 2015. It's a great pleasure to represent the Finnish Environment Institute and discuss these important themes of water, sanitation and gender this morning. I want to thank the Embassy for organizing this event, and Anne Lammila's really nice opening words on emphasizing equality. And I also want to thank Dr. Balzer and Minister Sisulu indirectly for the important messages also about food and water security relating to gender issues. And thank you also for the inspiration expressed by, and also commitment expressed by Jaana Husukallia from the Finnish ministerial level. Lastly, I want to thank Dr. Naidu for making this great case of how crisis is both a threat and opportunity for the equality and sustainability issues that we are discussing today, and also the importance of innovation. We really share these ideas. I bring the greetings from our Director General Leif Schulman, who could not attend today, and I am the research director of the Finnish Environment Institute. So I will, that's perhaps a bit of a window. I tell about Finnish Environment Institute, SYKE we call it for short, just in a few words, and then my colleague, Dr. Anna-Stina Heiskanen will continue after that. So SYKE to work together with a lot of partners. So we have a very collaborative approach as a research institute. We work towards the UN Agenda 2030 and for the Sustainable Development Goals. For our institute, sustainability transition is a mission. And all our work, also all our research work, when it gets to very sort of basic research, it all supports generating solutions towards sustainability. So some of our work does that very directly, and we work very closely with those managing natural resources and influencing and governing the environment. And sometimes it is a little bit less direct. So the SDG 6 that we are discussing today about water, sustainable management of water and sanitation for all, underlines the importance of water security and sanitation on the global agenda, although water is a very local issue as well. Water supply and sanitation are critically connected to almost all or possibly all other SDGs, and it is therefore very central. Also to this gender equality, as has been highlighted so nicely this morning in all of the opening statements, and to poverty reduction, food security, and health. The SDG 5 then, that aiming to achieve gender equality and empower women, is also very important, as was nicely illustrated by Dr. Naidu's speech. Finland is very committed to gender issues, promoting the rights and status of women and girls, and promoting equality through all Finland's formal work. In the Finnish Environment Institute, SYKE then, we produce relevant information and seek to find innovative solutions to local and global sustainability challenges. And water issues have always had a very central role in our work. Our history is a water administration history, actually. And we do all this together with our partners. We share our expertise and experience, and we learn from others. So much of our work is in a way co-learning and knowledge co-creation type work. In line with Finland's international water strategy, we work together with partners also in the water security issues and equitable water security. SYKE is very committed to open and accessible information. For us, the right to environmental information alongside the right to clean environment is very important. These are important human rights. They are stated in the Finnish constitution. And the extent, quality and availability of information related to environment and water are at the center of achieving the SDGs. Our impact as a research institute stems from our comprehensive, reliable, research-based environmental and water information, which is accessible to all and is used widely in environment-related decision-making. And this means in all sectors. So it doesn't mean only the environmental administration or environmental direct business, but also across the range of actors. We promote participation and collaboration, and we have recently finalized or put together a very long-standing process of developing an online open access water knowledge platform, which serves a large set of stakeholders. And this provides accurate and up-to-date water information on themes like water quality and quantity, hydrology, floods, very importantly, and a lot of other uses. Finally, just to think of Finland a little bit, our own history in Finland has that the Water Act has provided a basis for governing the use of water in Finland since the 60s. More recently, we are in the European Water Framework Directive framework where we operate in Finland. We think of the water ecosystems, the entire water systems, water ecosystems, and even aquatic biodiversity. And we look at and harness and safeguard the different ecosystem services that these water systems provide for the society, including health, for example. And we are proud and yet humble in Finland about our water resources at home. So we can, in Finland, you can almost bathe in clean, almost drinking quality water anywhere. Our drinking water from the tap is wonderful. And we know that this is the water challenges are different across the world. And we want to work globally with water sustainability with all the different types of issues that there are. And we believe that our collaboration with South Africa can foster great progress towards human rights and the effectiveness of the SDGs. And this Memorandum of Understanding with Water Research Commission of South Africa formalized this work. And it has a really comprehensive approach to common goals in the fields of water, sanitation, and gender. And we are looking forward to continuing this mutual collaboration, looking for collaborative solutions to water, sanitation, and gender-related issues, and toward building more equitable societies. And so with this, I wish you a really nice breakfast this morning, and I give the floor to my colleague, Dr. Anna-Stina Heiskanen. She can tell a little bit more concrete terms. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sharing the screen to start with. I hope you can see this.
We can.
Okay. So good morning, everybody, Madam Ambassador and dear delegates. And it's really nice to see you there in South Africa. I have had some opportunities to visit both Water Commission in Pretoria and also traveling in the northern parts of South Africa together with our delegation from the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry. So it was really nice to see you there and hear your very interesting, very important words about the crisis and the challenges we are facing globally. So I will just give you a few words about our institute, and also, as Mr. Naidu already said, we are in the phase of planning the actual implementation of our common memorandum of understanding. Dr. Eva Primer already briefly described our dedication to provide science-based knowledge and research for sustainable society. So our work is indeed very much focused in finding solutions for sustainability transformation, both nationally in Europe and also globally. And we acknowledge our role in large collaboration with several partners, both research partners, but also NGOs and companies. And as you can see from these slides, we are a multidisciplinary institution, and we work very much in transdisciplinary contexts because our aim is to provide the information, expertise, and services for decision making. So as such, we also are responsible for long-term monitoring of the state of the environment, as well as the water resources in Finland in collaboration with other partners. We provide new scientific knowledge, and we aim to excellence in natural and both social sciences, so that we can actually combine that information as already highlighted by Mr. Naidu. It's very important to focus on the social needs, and with that, or the natural resources, and partnerships are very important. Just a few examples where we have been working on global level. And as we are very dedicated for empowering women and the local communities in our collaboration projects, we have also been focusing on how to mainstream the gender-aware research and innovation approach in social, economic, and natural sciences, and provided some tools for that. As we provide our expertise for capacity building, but also for participatory approaches, so transdisciplinary development of the whole project is very important for us, and we seek for best practices that we can probably bring ourselves, or we can look together from other examples. For instance, we have worked in Africa earlier, in Zanzibar, where we have developed integrated coastal and marine spatial planning, and particularly focusing to improve the livelihoods of women that have or are dependent on marine resources. And for instance, we have been working together with UN Women in Finland's program for water sector support in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, where aim was really to empower women and communities for water management in Central Asia. So we acknowledge that the governance and the empowerment starts from the management and the governing of the water resources, and it goes all the way to the innovation and technologies covering the water sanitation opportunities and rights for women. So as already Mr. Naidu said, we had a very fruitful meeting more than a year ago in the beginning of 2020, just before the breakout of the COVID pandemics. And we started to formulate a memorandum of understanding between the Water Research Commission and the Finnish Environment Institute, particularly on issues related to water and sanitation, as well as water resources. So we aim to have together a strategic collaboration to facilitate, support, and implement research on water and sanitation. And one of our focal areas is innovation, training, and capacity building activities between the South African and Finnish stakeholders. We have identified several areas of cooperation that we now need to look more carefully and decide what are the priorities, because as Mr. Naidu changed, the world has changed since this when we met more than a year ago. We face new problems, and we need new knowledge and new information. And as already Jaana Husukallio mentioned, the water, energy, food, forestry, and ecosystem nexus is very much in the core of the right of access to water. How do we share the resources? How do we govern the resources between these linked needs of the resources? And what is the role of the women in contributing to the decision making and enabling the rights to access to water and the just use of the resources? So those probably will be also in focus of our future collaboration. So the next steps will be really to work on the implementation of our memorandum of understanding and be sure that we are including the gendered innovation that will empower and promote equality and access, not just to water, but access to environmental knowledge and information, such as also Eva Primmer was mentioning. So shortly with this, thanks a lot. And I'm really looking forward to start developing this joint activities with the Water Research Commission in South Africa, and hopefully being also able to visit again South Africa and to provide and to collaborate and to design interesting practical solutions and research projects that will be solving the problems and targets that we need to deliver in order to reach the targets of the Sustainable Development Goals. So thanks a lot.
It's an actual lake in Finland that is shaped like Finland. It's quite amazing. Yes, like Dr. Primmer mentioned about our waters that we are so proud of. I mean, water is in our DNA with the almost 200,000 lakes that we have in Finland. Yes, and the wood, water, forest, energy, and ecosystems nexus. I'm really looking forward how that will develop practically, and also how the gender innovation will be included in the work that your two organizations will embark on. Dr. Heiskanen also highlighted the global reach of Finnish research collaboration. So I would like to now invite a viewpoint from Southern African regional perspective, and Ms. Shamiso Kumbarai from Global Water Partnership. Please, the stage is yours. Let me just also do a little bit of spraying here.
Madam Ambassador, distinguished speakers, guests, and participants online. A very good morning to you all, and thank you for the wonderful opportunity to speak at this event today. Okay, so I'd like to share a little bit about some of the work that we're doing as Global Water Partnership Africa regarding water and women, particularly work centered around a recent collaborative program called the Continental Africa Water Investment Program, more commonly known as the AIP. Next slide, please. The AIP was formally adopted by the heads of state from the African Union in February of 2021 as part of the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa Priority Action Plan. And it's supported by a high-level leadership group comprising the former president of Tanzania and the GWP chair, His Excellency President Kikwete, His Excellency Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki, the CEO of the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD, and the President of the African Ministers' Council on Water, Namibian Minister of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, Honorable Carl Herman Schickman. The AIP is a Pan-African partner-driven program developed to transform the outlook of climate-resilient water and sanitation investments on the continent. The goal of the AIP is to mobilize $30 billion in investments by 2030 across Africa and create 5 million indirect and direct jobs. Next slide, please. To create this impact, the AIP is structured to be implemented across 3 areas that focus on SDG water investments, looking at the water, energy, food nexus, as well as incorporating health as well. Then we also have a transboundary water investments component, and then a support program specifically targeted at water, climate resilient developments, and gender investments, more commonly known as AIP WACDEP-G investments, which I'll be focusing a little bit more on during this presentation. The goal of WACDEP-G is to ensure that the design, governance, and management of climate resilient water investments, institutions, and job creation interventions strategically advance gender equality. Next slide, please. The overall objective is to transform gender inequalities at scale by promoting gender transformative planning, decision-making, and institutional development for climate resilient water investments in Africa. As we all know, gender inequalities in accessing productive assets and resources are often linked to access to water and disproportionately increase the burden of climate change in many African societies on women and girls. Communities living in disadvantaged situations with high poverty prevalence in Africa are critically exposed to water challenges and the effects of climate change. Vulnerability to climate change intersects diverse forms of marginalization, amplified further by gender, socioeconomic class, age, and other social variables. I'd like to share a story that resonates with me as a young woman, and I also believe speaks to some of the complex interlinkages between women, water, and climate change. And it's also a story that will sort of give a glimpse of some of the work that we do at GWP through this program. The location for the story is in the Mayo Tsanaga River Basin in Cameroon's far north region. Over the past decade, this area has been experiencing a high demand for teeth whitening agents. As with many parts of our continent, the main sources of potable water in this area are wells and boreholes supplied by groundwater aquifers. But in 2009, scientists discovered that climate change was affecting the groundwater quality in this river basin, resulting in high fluoride levels, exceeding the World Health Organization safety standards by more than 300%. This fluoride-rich water leads to dental fluorosis, a disease caused by chronic fluoride poisoning during the mineralization phase of the teeth at the very young age of up to 6 years old. It manifests itself by the appearance of yellow, red, or black spots, an enamel, and a deterioration of the dental crown of the teeth. More than 500,000 people within this region are exposed to this disorder, which causes irreversible damage to teeth as well as skeletal deformation. Not only does dental fluorosis damage teeth, but it also has a profound impact on society. As part of the WACDEP-G program, data was collected by GWP on human mentalities and behaviors around dental fluorosis. The data showed that women are more stigmatized than men, as they're considered as genetic carriers and blamed for being the ones that are transmitting this disease to children. Field missions and interviews with young affected girls revealed that some of them found it harder to find life partners as they're considered less beautiful, dirty, and ashamed to society. Other women struggle with low self-esteem and in a bid to attract men, use these bleaching products as teeth whitening agents. What was concerning was that the local officials didn't have a good understanding that the misconceptions about the cause of fluorosis were motivating stigmatization against women, and that these misconceptions influence social relations between affected and unaffected persons, and especially negatively impacted the social integration of affected women. Some of the work that's been done as part of the program to tackle this issue has been to launch an awareness campaign on the origin of fluorosis to help change public attitudes towards this disease. The project team has also worked together with the community to develop some key messages around the disorder and translated them into local languages, distributed through flyers as well as posters at community health centers, schools, and public offices. Since the campaign was organized, the local community is now more aware of the cause of this disorder, and people are collecting far less water with high concentrations of fluoride as the population becomes more educated on what sources of water to avoid and how to filter the water. The program is also strengthening the capacity of local officials to tackle this issue and working on innovations to develop a filter prototype using charred bones that will help provide and purify the fluoride-rich water. Beyond directly reaching women on the ground, the WACTIV-G program realizes that for marked progress on gender equality, mainstreaming needs to be embedded at the policy level and higher, similar to the progress that Finland has made with regards to gender equality. WACTIV-G is working with countries to ensure gender transformative structures, institutions, policies, and plans for climate resilient water investments and jobs are put in place and implemented. Furthermore, the program is strengthening the capabilities and knowledge of planners to enable gender transformative planning and the design of climate resilient water investments to take place. Next slide, please. Launched in April 2020, the wider AIP WACTIV-G initiative now covers 5 African countries: Benin, Cameroon, Tunisia, Uganda, and Zambia. And the hope is that lessons drawn from these pilot countries will help expand the program to another 13 African nations by 2025 and towards more countries by the year 2030. Finland's global reputation as a gender equality pioneer and its focus to prioritize strengthening the rights of women and girls, job creation, education and climate change, as well as adaptation, resonates strongly with some of the work that's being done at GWP. And we really look forward to a positive outcome for Finland in October 2021 elections for the UN Human Rights Council for the 2022 to 2024 term. We're optimistic that with you at the helm, there will be significant impacts that will be made towards advancing the agenda of women and WASH across the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was such an inspirational speech, and also highlighting again the access of resources that is so imperative globally, and also the collection of data that your organization is also doing. The example you gave was quite heartbreaking, but it also emphasized how important it is to engage communities. And also kind of how the water is really intertwined in all human activities. Yes, engaging communities on the grassroots level. We have, sorry, can we have the attendance there? Thank you so much. We have Sari coming from Zambia, if I understood it correctly. She is running the Global Dry Toilet Association that is doing wonderful work at regarding bringing proper sanitation to rural areas, especially here in Southern Africa. So Sari, please go ahead. The stage is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, and greetings from chilly Zambia as well. We have a nice sunny morning here, but it's quite low temperatures. I've traveled here last week and participated Zambia Water Forum earlier this week. And here in Zambia, WASH issues are really on board at the moment, and people are really interested about the WASH, especially after Zambia had a cholera epidemic a few years ago, and of course with this this pandemic we are facing now. So today I'm just briefly going to present what we are doing as an organization. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see it now. So as a Global Dry Toilet Association of Finland, we are a small NGO promoting sanitation and WASH issues And we have worked in 5 African countries so far, and our longest term partner has been Zambia. So today I'm going to just briefly tell you a bit what we are doing in the ground, especially concentrating on these gender issues we are talking, or we have been talking today. Let me see if I can change the slide. Obviously it stopped. Okay, so here are some pictures of our activities here in Zambia. So we are kind of like holistically doing the approach for WASH, so not just building toilets or not just building water points, but we are doing quite a lot of hygiene training and events to promote the sanitation. And of course, when we are talking about this, our target groups, we are also targeting schools, and especially girls in the schools, and also women groups in the communities. So gender issues are really, really on focus in our programs. We are kind of like having this holistical approach in the schools as well. Sorry. From these pictures, you can actually see that we are building toilets, especially dry toilets into the schools, but we also promote water into the schools. If they don't have any borehole, we can drill one, or we can just improve their water in many ways. Here is an example that we just bought some water tanks to the school to improve the system. And then especially when we have these dry toilets, you may be aware that you can actually utilize the products from the toilets. So we are actually combine it usually with the school garden, if the school has a space for such. And then in this garden, you can actually utilize the compost and the diverted urine from the toilets. And it's also a learning process for the school and for the kids how to utilize these products. At the same time, we teach them how to, grow foods. And I'm very happy to tell you that, for instance, in this one school we have started a few years ago, we have managed to keep the garden so well that actually when these products were sold, we could cover over 20 school kids' school fees and expenses from these incomes. So it doesn't actually improve the sanitation, but it's also is making sure that some of the vulnerable kids can actually keep on being in the school whilst or through our programs, and I think it's a quite nice approach. Of course, we are doing quite a lot of sensitization and hygiene training, and what comes with girls, we are doing menstrual hygiene management training. And we also, this past year, we have cooperated with these workshops. So we actually teach the girls in the school how to sew the reusable pads for their own use. And also we have engaged women groups to do also such activities. We have got some donors from Finland who has actually donated the sewing machines for these activities. And this is what we are going to widely spread during this new phase of our Zambian dry sanitation program, which started this year. And we will have these activities for next year. So on the pictures, you can actually see some of the pads we have sewed, and we also have quite a lot wide scale of different types of training materials we have done for the community engagement and trainings, and for the schools as well. So hopefully with these activities, we can actually like in a very many ways to improve water and sanitation in the schools and in the communities. So this is kind of like our project target. So from the unhealthy environment, from people are getting from the environment where people are getting sick, we aim to have these healthy environments where people can actually, grow their foods and have the safe drinking water and have the safe water sources, and go to the school without being sick. Of course, we are aware that the poor sanitation affects people in many ways, and there's lots of diseases, and of course this issue with girls who don't have access to the toilets, and they even have to finish the school when they are about to come to the puberty age, and so on. So we have quite a lot of things to do, but I'm very happy to say that the interest of sanitation and wash sector has been very much raised past few years. And I'm very happy that also we have got so much support from our government, the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, who have been the main funder for these activities we have done. And I surely hope that the ministry and also the local governments are even in the future, they see sanitation as a very important matter to be tackled and improved, and with the cooperation we can, I think, hopefully we can reach these targets for sustainable development goal. There's my details in the slides, and also I can share my contact information in the chat box if anybody wants to hear more about what we are doing. Also, we have had quite a lot of cooperation with the universities from Finland and from our target countries, and we have actually visited few universities also in South Africa, and planning some cooperation also in South Africa. So hopefully we can also expand our works to that side as well. Thank you so much, and I look forward to work with all of you for this important topic.
It's wonderful to hear about the activities in the field, and also about that you have now incorporated the menstruational hygiene for women.
Yes.
It's more things that donating sewing machines that can help go for a long way. We are a little tight on time. I wanted to have some questions and some comments from the audience, but I think we unfortunately have to skip that. But you have our contact details, so please, if there's anything you want to contact information or something else, we can assist with that. But for this very last session, I would, before the closing remarks, I would like to invite final comments from Mr. Lepel from the World Vision and Mr. Dr. Mwangi from WHO. Mr. Bruce, if you could please go ahead first. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you for having us here, and my colleagues in the fight for human rights. I want to challenge us now. I hope you don't take offense, but I'm going to stand behind this. I'm going to come up. I want us to imagine for a moment that this vacant chair here is occupied by 12-year-old Molele King from Tusula in Limpopo, and her community is ensconced in a drought that is encapsulating Limpopo at the moment. She is 12 years old, starting to become an adolescent, starting to menstruate. She shares a pit latrine with her neighbor, and she's sitting here today. What would she ask of us? What would she ask of us? Would she be saying, I really want the very best policy. I really want to ensure that the MOUs you sign have the right I's dotted and T's crossed. I really hope that the breakfasts that you have and the conversations you have are meaningful. Or would she be saying, give me an opportunity to be the girl and the woman that I've been created to be? Maybe she has a desire to be an engineer, or a journalist, or an ambassador, or an agricultural counselor. It's our opportunity today, as we sit here, 9 years away from 2030, to give her that opportunity. And if we step forward 9 years, and she's now sitting here with a different group of people, as a 21-year-old, maybe she's completed her first degree, would she look back and say, I'm so grateful for the men and women in this room and in virtual land there for what they did on this day to give me the opportunity to realize my dream, the opportunity to actually have a thriving career, to be self-gratified, self-actualized in her home, and not feel she has to move away from there to the big city of Johannesburg. That's the opportunity that we have. And we all know this. It doesn't matter how great our policy is. We don't know. It doesn't matter how good the strategies and plans are. If we fail to implement, we fail to actually get the grassroots change, then we make no difference at all. And that has to be at the core of everything we do. What is the real impact? What is the tangible impact? And we get to ask ourselves this question. We've had years of policy. We've had years of strategies and plans. We've had years of civil society organizations like World Vision operating in these communities. What's the real changes leaving behind? What is the impediments to making change that is real and lasting and sustainable? Let's find those. Let's change those. That's what's key. So that's just me imploring us to make sure that we really make the difference. We make the difference in the girl child's life. That's the real empowerment. The empowerment isn't sitting here talking about it. It's the doing.
Thank you very much for the challenge. Dr. Mwani, are you ready to take the challenge? Please go ahead.
Thank you for the challenge. Let me begin from there. Madam Ambassador, thank you so much for having us in your warm house. I come from Kenya, where we have 4 major seasons of summer that merge into each other in 1 year. So this is quite unfamiliar territory. So thank you for the fire, for keeping us warm, and thank you for the challenge. I know and I'm cognizant of the fact that I stand between you and breakfast, but you still take your mask. Okay. We hear you better. Yeah, I think we've gotten used to them. We feel like part of our apparatus, so which is all right. So colleagues, thank you so much. It's amazing how water unifies the globe. I think it's only water, air, food, and the human desire to connect, that sit right at the top of what brings the globe together. And I stand here to represent Dr. Kalua, who is our representative of WHO in South Africa. He's intimately linked to the COVID responses in the Northern Cape currently, in the field trying to help to halt and reverse the burden of this disease in our country. And he sends his greeting and apologies for not being able to make. And I'm glad that Finland has these 3 pivotal agendas of gender equity, education, and digitalization, which are very critical for human existence and for sustainable development. And as we know, the access of clean and adequate, safe, and easily available water sits right in the middle of the SDGs. In fact, if you ask me one input in the SDGs that weaves across all the other SDGs, then that would be water, because adequate water means health, means gender empowerment, it means sustainable consumption of the resources. Water runs across all the SDGs, and it's that one agenda which can unify us. COVID-19, of course, has exposed the soft underbelly of our planning, and I'm glad about the challenge that we have been given. And Dr. Naidu talked about the building back concept, building back better concept that everybody is talking about. How do we build back after this COVID? And he talked about there being the need to build back in a more resilient way, putting resilience in our systems. There is the building back in a more equitable way. And of course, there is the building back in a more sustainable way. If you look across I think it's Winston Churchill who said that we never let a good crisis go into waste. This has been a crisis. And as we respond and build back, then we cannot be forgiven if we don't take advantage of the things that it has exposed, the weaknesses that we have in our systems. Shamisha, you gave a very interesting story of Cameroon. And let me just give a small little perspective of myself as an individual. I come from the Rift Valley in Nairobi, and as you may see, I'm a victim of fluorosis. The same example that you gave, all the way from Nairobi. I live in a small little village in a town called Nakuru. I'm one of the lucky guys who have a mild form of fluorosis. And so I'll give an example. I called my mother the other day and asked her, hey, how has the COVID impacted our small little village? And she was like, oh my, we've noticed a big uptake of wearing of masks. She's a retired teacher, so she has a very broad perspective of our village, and said, a lot of girls now are wearing masks. And she said, I think it's because of the fluorosis. I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, she's right. Because it's given them an opportunity to hide the stained teeth. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what will happen after the pandemic? Because it has given them that opportunity to hide, and like the guys in Cameroon who wash their teeth to make it more white. The UN, and I'm happy that my sister from UNICEF is here with me, has the desire to deliver as one. Because occasionally we have very many silos looking at water, but sometimes they don't read to each other. The African Union, I'm glad that is trying to put this into partnerships that can have a bigger punch in sustainability of these innovations around water and the SDG 6. And for us as WHO, improved wash has a huge return on investment from our perspective. Actually, the last research that we did, the dollar that we invest has close to $6 in returns from investing in water. And a lot of people have talked, so I won't even go back there, but it has a lot of improvement in maternal health, neonatal and child health. issues around antimicrobial resistance, reduction in waterborne diseases, including COVID and cholera and all those, and a lot of issues around mental health and well-being and the dignity around the woman and the girl child. And of course, there's a reduction of blindness around trachoma and some other diseases that depend on just availability of clean water. Issues around poverty and social developmental progress. Water is very seminal. And of course, the empowerment of girls and keeping them in school is also a huge impact that water does. And as you know, women and girls have several challenges that are intricately linked to water. And I'll just talk about three. You know, in families that are challenged or in communities that are challenged to access to water, women bear the brunt because they have to fill that gap. They have to go look for that water. And in that looking for that water exposes them to risks and vulnerability of sexual assault and all those things. Small little girls looking for water in rivers that are far from home. And of course, that vulnerability keeps them away from school and doesn't level the playing field with the boy child in school. So you have to look at it from that perspective. And of course, finally, women and girls have unique needs for water. At birth, you know, reduces a lot of neonatal mortality from sepsis, and women who give birth in clean environments have lesser puerperal sepsis, and survival of the child is better in communities that have access to water. Issues around puberty and menses. Menstrual hygiene is a huge determinant of child going to school and also remaining healthy. And of course, during pregnancy and child rearing, water is very seminal for these. And so my final comment is looking at it more broadly than just access to water. In the morning, I was talking to a colleague of mine, asking them around the issue of use of urban wastewater. Globally, we have a huge now developing arable land around peri-urban land. Actually, the last estimate was close to 36 million hectares are under agricultural production around cities using city wastewater. The question is, how safe is this water? Is it treated? A lot of it is effluent from industries, from hospitals, from many other places that find these chemicals, heavy metals into the food chain, and we are seeing it in children causing mental retardation. So I'm worried about that, and that should unify us. Finally, let me just look at, actually, for the sake of breakfast, I'll just summarize and say my message would be three things. The first one is partnerships. Partnerships are very important, and I'm happy that the Finnish embassy has brought us together, all these different government bodies, the United Nations bodies, to talk about this one key element. The second one is partnerships with the community and with meaningful involvement. And I'm happy that the challenge we've gotten from World Vision, that small little girl, she has something to say. That mother in the village, sometimes in the ivory towers, they don't have access to put their voice. We should have a meaningful involvement of these communities so that they can say things, so that they can help us to help them. And the final one is partnerships. You know, across different sectors of government, water is not just the purview or the mandate of the Ministry of Water or Forestry or the commission that Dr. Naidu comes from. Even health, everywhere, all the sectors of government should be able to deliver as one to ensure that we are able to meet this SDG commitment by the year 2030. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mwangi. I just have to, you highlighted all those important issues. I'm a veterinary doctor myself, so I'm very glad that you actually mentioned antimicrobial resistance. Thank you for that. We shouldn't forget about that. This may be the third pandemic also that is affecting us globally. But without further ado, and due to the sake of breakfast, I'm just going to say it's set in the program. We finish at 11. We can stay longer and enjoy our breakfast. But I would like to invite for the closing remarks, Ms. Makiko from UNICEF. Please go ahead.
Madam Ambassador, our hostess this morning, thank you very much for having us. And as the previous speaker said, thank you for bringing the good weather. I think we are all feeling very comfortable. And to the deputy ministers that are joining us from Helsinki, what a pleasure and what a privilege to be connected this way. The representative also of the minister, Mr. Trevor Balza, thank you also for the remarks on behalf of the minister. To all the distinguished guests, it's difficult to name everybody, but what a pleasure to be here, and what a privilege for UNICEF to close this important meeting. So we started with the global perspective from the ambassador. You gave us an overview of Finland and your views and how you'd like to be a global player in influencing what happens in the area of water, sanitation, and hygiene. Then we had an opportunity through the various speakers this morning to also go local. So we had perspectives from South Africa through Dr. Naidu. We had the African perspective, the continental perspective, and we went to Zambia. I don't know whether it was Lusaka, but whichever city it was, we went to Zambia. And then we also had an opportunity to hear from Finland. And I think from all those overviews that we shared, one thing is clear. Water indeed is a unifier. So here we are, we've spent the morning talking about water. It sounds like a simple topic, and yet water is indeed life. It's not just a cliche, it is reality. Let me just highlight a few things from UNICEF perspective. I joined my brother from WHO in confirming our commitment. In fact, UNICEF this year we are turning 75. We were born out of the ashes of war. That was our genesis. And this year, as we mark the 75th year of our founding, we are doing this on the back of a global crisis, the COVID impact, which we continue to see all around us. And what it has done, and as has been mentioned by other speakers, is that it has laid bare the inequalities. And Dr. Naidu, the issue of inequality is also at the heart of the agenda of UNICEF globally and here in South Africa. The inequalities were there. I had a colleague from Helsinki talking about the clean water that they enjoy, that they can turn a tap and have water. And I couldn't help but remember the statistics that I looked at yesterday from South Africa, that 71%, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 71% of people in rural areas in South Africa do not have access to safe water. I mean, 31%, I think it's about 30%, don't have it readily within their residence. And then even the issue of sanitation, the fact that not everyone has a hand washing station within reach. And that is why we have partnered with World Vision in the last year to go to those communities. And we have worked with partners like World Vision and others to ensure that water, access to water, to sanitation, and just good old washing of hands becomes a key part of our fight against COVID in the absence or in the coming on board of vaccination. And in any case, we've always known that good hygiene is it's our front line when it comes to preventing diseases. So it is a pleasure to be here this morning and to also add a voice to the other speakers who have been part of the panel this morning in confirming the agency. You shared the statistics, Madam Ambassador, I don't need to repeat them. The statistics are glaring. Billions of people lacking access to water, lacking access to hygiene, and lacking access to a healthy and protective environment. The gender dimension, I don't need to repeat. It has been amply described. It's not just about ensuring that women have access to resources, women are empowered. It's really about everyone. Because when we empower women, when we make sure that girl in Limpopo doesn't skip school because she's having her menses, that girl in Limpopo is not constrained from participating actively just because she is a girl and just because she has to have her period every single month. So those are the gender realities that we need to address. We also know that there is an age disparity. And so children and young people do bear a disproportionate burden. That has been shown time and time again. And so this morning's meeting was timely. It is timely because it is coming when we all realize, and we've seen this in the last year of COVID, the importance of hygiene, the importance of ensuring that the right to water is realized by everybody, not just a few. So let me share just a few lessons we have learned as a global organization with a presence in over 114 countries where we are implementing WASH programs. We have learned the centrality of political commitment. And so it was a joy to hear from Mr. Balza reconfirming South Africa's commitment. And this is something that we expect from global leaders, political commitment. Well, I have also highlighted, and my brother mentioned, partnerships, that we need to look beyond traditional partnerships, starting with the community, starting with the children, with the young people, because that's the generation that is going to help us move into a new era of equity, of good hygiene practices, and of good citizenship. Then also the role of business, the business community. And from the examples that we shared, you could see that without partnering with the private sector, we will not achieve the ambitious goals that we have. One last lesson that we have learned that I would like to share is that of the need for us to ensure that our solutions are resilient. I think last year was a big lesson for all of us. We need to invest in resilient infrastructure, in innovation. That is going to be the game changer. Innovation, and that innovation has to be grounded in the context, the local context. So while we think global, we really need to act local and be informed by the context. So lastly, UNICEF joins everybody else in adding and reaffirming our commitment to making sure that access to safe water, to hygiene, to preventive services is a right for all. And we also join you and wish you all the very best with your candidacy. And we hope that October will bring us more sunshine and that we will continue to work together with your government and people, because your experiences are so critical in informing the strategies that we can take going forward. So we stand ready to invest in children and making sure that we build a future that is better, equal, and inclusive for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the inspirational words, Mr. People, and congratulations for the 75 years. I would like to conclude this morning. Thank you, everyone. It's been such a pleasure and privilege to have you all here. Thank you, ministers, ministries, Department of Water and Sanitation, and Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry for being here, and honorable speakers. I will now bid farewell to our online guests. I hope you also have something nice to look forward to. We in this room, we have some wonderful breakfast waiting for us. So please, let's just give a hand to everyone, and especially Ms. Mateo Polo, that has been a crucial help for us here. Thank you. So if Madam Ambassador, if you would like to lead the way to the breakfast. All right. Thank you, everyone.